T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and lift off of Intelsat 40E. Go Intelsat, go Falcon.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
M1D chamber pressure nominal.
If you're just joining us, those gorgeous views on your screen mean that Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. During
Nominal power and telemetry.
The call out there that nominal power and telemetry for the vehicle. During this phase, which is called ascent, we tilt the engines. The technical term for this is called gimbaling, and that turns the rocket horizontally in what we call a gravity turn.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
There's a call out that Falcon 9 is now traveling faster than the speed of sound. During this period, we're still going up, but we're also heading horizontally away from the launch pad.
Max Q.
Just moments ago, we throttled down in preparation for max Q, which is the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure that the vehicle will see on ascent. So that's what's happening right now. The rocket typically needs to go about 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back to Earth and reach orbit. Now we're going to have 3 events coming up in quick succession, starting with main engine cutoff, stage separation, and second engine start 1. Main engine cutoff, or MECO, is the point during the flight where we shut down the 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Shortly after that, stages 1 and 2 will separate from each other so that the second stage isn't carrying unnecessary mass to orbit. And of course, the first stage booster begins its trip back to Earth. The last call out you heard was about the MVAC engine. That's what we're going to start up during SES-1, or second engine start 1. That's the period during the flight where we'll ignite the Merlin vacuum engine on board the second stage for the first time. So we'll see all 3 of those happen back to back just about 10 seconds from now.
MECO. Stage separation confirmed. MVAC ignition.
So there you heard and definitely saw those great views on your screen. 3 events happening back to back: main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1. Coming up next will be fairing separation in just a couple of seconds. During this portion of the flight, we'll jettison both fairing halves and then attempt to retrieve them again today.
Both vehicles are following nominal trajectories. Fairing separation confirmed.
There we've got confirmation of fairing separation, which means both fairing halves are on their way back to Earth to be recovered by our recovery vessel, Doug. Coming up next, there are 2 burns for our first stage as we prepare for landing on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
We're now T plus 3 minutes and 54 seconds into today's mission. And we're currently, as you see there on your screen, we're in the first of 2 planned MVAC burns that will occur prior to satellite deployment. At T plus 6 minutes and 31 seconds, or around there, you should see on your screen the first stage's entry burn. For that entry burn, we relight 3 M1D engines, which are those 9 engines at the base or the bottom of the first stage. We will relight first the center engine, or called E9, and then shortly thereafter, we will also relight 2 radial engines, engines 1 and 5. And all 3 of those together will help slow the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We perform that reentry burn in order to slow down the booster, which helps to reduce those reentry forces that it sees. And in turn, that helps us recover and reuse our first stages.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Although we can't see the first stage right now, you can follow along with the telemetry there in the bottom left-hand corner for stage 1, and then that stage 2 telemetry there in the right-hand bottom corner of your screen. We can see that the first stage is now beginning its descent back to Earth, so it has already passed through its apogee, making its way back down. This time we're targeting a landing on our drone ship, which is parked a couple hundred miles off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, during that entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but it's still moving very rapidly. This causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume, and by doing so, we get a deposit of soot on the vehicle surface. That soot then basically comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses. We're expecting that entry burn to begin in about 20 seconds. Everything continues to look good there. For that second stage, we can see that MVAC engine, which is the singular Merlin engine designed for use in the vacuum of space, attached there to our second stage.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
All right, so there on that left-hand side of your screen, those stage 1 views are back. We can see that entry burn has begun, and it's also illuminating the grid fins, which help to steer the booster for re-entry and also to make a precise landing.
Stage 1, entry burn shut down.
All right, we can see that entry burn has concluded.
Both vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
As a reminder, the first stage that we saw there on the left-hand side of your screen, that performed the entry burn for the 4th time. It previously supported CRS-26, OneWeb Launch 16, and a Starlink mission. Falcon 9 is the world's first orbital-class reusable rocket, and this is important because reusability allows SpaceX to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of space access.
Terminal guidance.
The next major milestone we have coming up is SECO, or Second Engine Cutoff 1, which is coming up in about 20 seconds. That will be followed very quickly.
Stage 1, transonic.
And that call out tells us that the first stage is traveling near the speed of sound. That first stage will begin its landing burn just after we have the second engine cut off.
MVAC shutdown.
All right, there's that call out telling us that we had successful shutdown or cutoff of that.
Stage 1, landing burn.
You can see landing burn has begun there on that screen.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
You can see those grid fins working hard to steer it back to the drone ship for its landing.
Nominal orbit insertion.
Great call out there indicating we've got...
Stage 1, landing leg deploy. Stage 1, landing confirmed.
There you can see on your screen an amazing view as always. That landing marks SpaceX's 184th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. The mission isn't over just yet. We did hear the call out telling us that the second stage achieved good orbit, so it is now embarking on its first coast phase. After this coast phase, we will light that MVAC engine for a second time, and that will happen around the T+26 minute mark.